Not all introverts are the same, and most introverts don't even know that. Society has taught us that being an introvert means one thing: quiet, shy, awkward, the person who stands in the corner at a party, wishing they could go home. But modern psychology has quietly discovered something different. Introversion isn't one thing, it's four completely different things. Two people can both call themselves introverts and be nothing alike. One recharges alone, but loves being with people in small groups. Another lives entirely inside their own head. Another feels genuine anxiety around people, and another isn't shy at all. They just take their time before opening up. All four look introverted from outside. On the inside, they operate in completely different ways. You've been called shy your whole life, even when you weren't. You've been told to come out of your shell since you were a child. You've been called antisocial when the truth was, you actually love people, just in smaller doses. Family members wondered why you were so quiet. Co-workers called you distant. And through all of it, you quietly asked yourself a question nobody ever really answered. Why am I this way? You've been called an introvert your whole life, but nobody ever explained which kind. Modern research, a framework called the STAR model, has identified four measurable distinct types of introversion: social, thinking, anxious, restrained. Each one operates on its own wiring. Each one has its own strengths, its own struggles, its own patterns. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which type you are, and one of them may surprise you. Let's start with the most misunderstood type of all. Type 1, the social introvert. Not shy, not anxious, not awkward. Just someone who prefers small groups over crowded ones. Someone who chooses solitude, not because they're hiding from people, but because being alone genuinely restores them. Meet Linda. Linda is 52, lives in Ohio, is happily married, has 3 grown kids, and works as a high school teacher. She has close friends. She loves her family. From the outside, Linda looks completely social. But every Friday after work, when her colleagues head to happy hour, Linda quietly drives home. Not because she doesn't like them. She'll happily meet one of them for coffee on Saturday morning. But 8 people in a loud restaurant on a Friday night. That drains her more than her entire teaching week. Linda isn't shy. She isn't antisocial. She's a social introvert. Here's what social introverts look like day to day. They enjoy one-on-one conversations. They love small groups of 2 or 3, but big parties and crowded events drain them completely. They cancel plans not out of anxiety, out of pure preference. They don't feel lonely being alone. They feel restored. They'd rather stay home with a book than attend a 30-person cookout. And they rarely enjoy small talk. They prefer real conversation. Here's what's happening in their brain. They're neurologically wired for lower external stimulation. Social interaction isn't threatening to them, it's just energetically expensive. Recovery requires solitude, not therapy, not anxiety management, just quiet. But here's what most people get wrong. Family members assume they're shy. They're not. Friends think they don't like anyone. They do, deeply. Neighbors invite them to big events and get confused when they politely decline. You probably know someone like this. Maybe it's you. The friend who says, "Let's just grab coffee," instead of, "Let's go to the party." The family member who prefers Thanksgiving dinner with 4 people instead of 24. The person who leaves gatherings early, calmly, without drama. Social introverts often have the deepest friendships of anyone you know, because they invest fully in the few people they choose. Their solitude is a skill, and this is one of the healthiest expressions of introversion you'll ever see. But the next type doesn't live in the external world at all. They live somewhere much deeper, inside their own mind. Type 2, the thinking introvert, the dreamer, the imaginer, the one who lives inside their own head, not withdrawn from people out of fear, withdrawn because their inner world is so rich, they don't need constant external stimulation. Meet Robert. Robert is 58, retired last year from an accounting career, and lives in a quiet suburb outside Chicago with his wife, Karen. Here's the thing about Robert. He can be sitting at a family dinner, surrounded by his kids and grandkids, and he's somewhere else entirely. He's replaying a conversation from 3 weeks ago. He's thinking about the woodworking project in the garage. He's imagining what his father would have said about the news that morning. Karen once told him, "Where do you go when you get quiet like that?" Because sometimes she can literally see him disappear behind his own eyes. Robert isn't distant. He's a thinking introvert. Here's what thinking introverts do all day. They're constantly daydreaming and replaying scenarios. They have rich internal narratives running through their mind at any given moment. They lose track of time, reading, tinkering, thinking, creating. They can be in a room full of people and still be somewhere else in their head. They're introspective. They question everything, examine everything. Here's what psychology says about their minds. They're characterized by high internal mental activity. Their introversion isn't about withdrawing from social situations. It's about being absorbed in their own inner world. The mind is their primary environment. Not their body, not the room, their mind. Here's how the world misjudges them. People call them boring because they're quiet in groups. Family assumes they're not paying attention when they're actually processing at a much deeper level. Spouses may worry they're somewhere else during conversations, and often they are, but not in the way anyone thinks. Some of history's greatest minds were thinking introverts. Einstein said his best ideas came during long, solitary walks. Newton reportedly discovered gravity while sitting alone under a tree. Tesla claimed his entire inventions were fully designed in his head before he ever built them. If you're the person who solves problems in the shower or gets your best ideas when you're finally alone, this is you. Thinking introverts are often the most creative, imaginative, and philosophical people in any room. Their distraction is often deep thought, and the world benefits enormously from minds that live inside themselves. Before we move on, if this video is already speaking to something you felt for years, subscribe to the channel. This is exactly the kind of psychology I explore here. Videos that finally explain the parts of you nobody ever named. But the next type experiences introversion very differently. For them, being around people isn't just draining, it's genuinely painful. Type 3. The Anxious Introvert. This is what most people think all introverts are. But it's actually a specific subtype, not the whole picture. Anxious introverts aren't just quiet. They're genuinely uncomfortable around people, nervous, self-conscious, physically activated in ways others don't experience. Meet Susan. Works in medical billing and lives just outside Denver. Last month, her company had a mandatory holiday party. Susan spent 3 days dreading it. She rehearsed conversations in her head. She worried about what to wear, what to say, whether people would judge her. She almost called in sick that morning. She showed up. She barely spoke. She left as soon as she politely could. And on the drive home, she replayed every awkward moment for 2 hours. Her husband asked her that night, "Why do you do this to yourself?" And she couldn't quite explain it. Susan isn't cold. She's an anxious introvert. Here's what anxious introverts experience every day. They feel genuinely nervous around unfamiliar people. They overthink social situations before, during, and long after. They experience real physical symptoms in social settings. Sweaty palms, racing heart, dry mouth. Their body reacts as if it's in danger, even when it isn't. They rehearse conversations before they happen. They replay them for hours or days after. They avoid parties and networking events whenever they can. Home feels safe. The outside world feels overwhelming. Here's what's happening underneath. This isn't clinical social anxiety disorder. This is a personality trait. Anxious introverts have higher baseline nervous system activation in social settings, and they're not avoiding people because they don't like them. They're avoiding people because their body reacts as if it's in physical danger. Recovery for this type requires safety, not just solitude. Here's how the world misreads them. Co-workers assume they're rude or arrogant because they don't engage. Family thinks they don't care when they actually care too much. Well-meaning friends push them into social situations for their own good, which usually makes it dramatically worse. Let me ask you something. If you've ever practiced a phone call before making it, this might be you. If you've ever cancelled plans at the last minute because the anxiety became too much, this might be you. If you've ever lain awake at 2 a.m. replaying an awkward conversation from 6 years ago, this might be you. Being around people doesn't just drain you, it scares you. But here's what nobody tells anxious introverts. They're often the most emotionally attuned people in any room. They notice social details others miss entirely. Their sensitivity, while painful, is also a superpower for reading rooms. And once they feel safe with someone, they're deeply loyal, deeply caring, and deeply present. But the last type is different from all three. They're not shy, not anxious, not lost in thought. They're just slow to open up. Type 4. the restrained introvert, sometimes called the reserved introvert. Not shy, not anxious, not lost in their head, just slower. Slower to speak, slower to trust, slower to open up, slower to decide. Meet Michael. Michael is 61, retired from a long career in engineering, and lives with his wife Barbara in North Carolina. When Michael meets someone new, a new neighbor, a new church member, a new son-in-law, he's quiet, really quiet. He observes them for weeks, sometimes months, before he starts opening up. Barbara often has to explain to new people, give him time, give him a few months, then you'll see who he really is. And it's true. 6 months in, Michael is warm, thoughtful, funny, deeply engaged, and everyone loves him. Michael isn't cold, he isn't slow, he's a restrained introvert. Here's what restrained introverts do naturally. They're slow to open up in new relationships. They observe carefully before participating. They don't share opinions until they've fully formed them. They make decisions slowly, considering every angle. In new environments, they watch first, act later. Once trust is built, they're extraordinarily loyal. They're never fake, never rushed, never reactive. They speak less, listen more, and notice everything. Here's what psychology says about their pattern. They're characterized by lower behavioral activation. That's not anxiety, that's deliberation. Their nervous system operates on a slower, more careful rhythm. They process everything thoroughly before responding. This isn't a deficiency, it's a completely different pace of engagement. Here's how they get misunderstood. People call them cold during the first few weeks of knowing them. Co-workers think they're disengaged, when they're actually deeply engaged, just observing. Family members may push them to hurry up, which almost always backfires. Let me ask you something. If you've ever been called quiet at your job for the first 6 months, and then suddenly people realized how sharp you were, this is you. If you've ever taken 2 weeks to respond to an important message because you wanted to think about it carefully, this is you. If you've ever watched a new group at church or work for months before opening up, this is you. Restrained introverts often make the best decisions of anyone in the room because they think everything through. They're the most reliable friends and spouses once trust is established. And the world genuinely needs people who don't rush. So which type are you? Let me recap all 4. The social introvert prefers small groups. Crowds drain them. They love solitude because they choose it. The thinking introvert lives inside their own head. Rich imagination, deep inner world, lost in thought most of the time. The anxious introvert feels nervous around people. Physical discomfort, overthinking. Home feels safe. The outside world feels overwhelming. The restrained introvert is slow to open up, careful, observant, deliberate, warm once you've earned their trust. Here's the important thing. Most people are a mix of 2 types with one dominant. You might be 60% social with 40% thinking. You might be 70% anxious with 30% restrained. Your job isn't to fit yourself neatly into one box. Your job is to discover your dominant type, because that's your operating system. For decades, you've been told, you're just an introvert, as if that single phrase explained everything about who you are. It didn't. It never did. Because introversion isn't one thing. It's 4 completely different forms of being human. 4 different nervous systems. 4 different inner worlds. 4 different ways of moving through life. And whichever type describes you, it's not a flaw. It's not a personality defect. It's not something to fix, apologize for, or work around. It's simply how your specific mind, your specific nervous system, and your specific social wiring actually work. Understanding your type finally gives you language for behaviors you've been carrying your entire life. Behaviors nobody around you had the vocabulary to explain. Patterns you've been apologizing for since you were a child that were never actually wrong to begin with. You're not just quiet. You're not just shy. You're not just an introvert. You're specifically wired, in a specific way, for specific reasons. And now, for maybe the first time, you have the language to describe yourself accurately. Before you go, I have one small favor. Comment your type in the section below. Just the number, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Or the name, social, thinking, anxious, or restrained? If you're a mix, tell me the mix. I read every single comment, and I genuinely love to know which one described you the most accurately. If this video finally gave language to something you felt your whole life, share it with someone. Another introvert in your life who needs to hear this. A family member who never quite understood you. A friend who's been calling themselves just quiet for years. And if you'd like more psychology videos that finally explain how your mind actually works, the way this one just did, subscribe to the channel. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're just specifically wired.